Hello students, in this video we'll discuss about restricted earth fault protection, which is experiment number 8 in our lab manual. Before we go to restricted earth fault protection, we will have a discussion about what are the drawbacks of the differential protection of transformer that we used in the last experiment. The last experiment we were discussing differential protection of transformer. If you could remember, we used 6 identical transformers, 3 on the primary side of the transformers and 3 on the secondary side of the transformers. Their ratings were different because the current on the primary side and the current on the secondary side were different. We successfully completed the experiment in the lab class. Now here in percentage differential relay, the problem is because if you remember, we used a delay of 2 seconds at the starting. Why did we use a delay of 2 seconds? Because at the starting there is a inrush current in the transformer, and because of this inrush current the relay will trip. So in order to avoid this, we were using a 2 seconds delay, and we were also not using the 0 amperes as setting for the current relay. We were using a 110% of the no load current, so the sensitivity of the relay was little bit down. So here so that is the meaning, the certain minimum value of pickup. That means we didn't use a 0 amperes as a setting for the overcurrent relay, and moreover this differential protection has a drawback because we were not using the 0 amperes. We were using, for example, a 0.5 ampere or some value of the setting. Now here there are some faults in transformer which are called as high resistance ground fault. Now what is the idea is, normally we used to draw a short circuit fault like this. This is the symbol of a short circuit fault, dead short circuit. Now here we have a fault where there is a high resistance and then it is connected to the ground. So the fault current actually passes through this high resistance. So the fault current is not very high. It is in terms of very small amperes, and this is actually less than the pickup value that we use in the setting. So the differential relay will not be able to find these high resistance faults current. So what is the difference? Normally we use a dead short circuit. That means the resistance is 0. So that is what we were analyzing so far in the lab class. Now here in this class we are going to analyze high resistance. That means this resistance is very high. If the resistance is very high, the fault current would be very less, and this fault current is not detected by the differential protection that we studied in the last class. So that is the reason that we have to use a restricted earth fault protection, which are more sensitive than the percentage differential protection and are also not affected by the inrush current of the transformer. So this is the idea that why we have to use a restricted. Now what does this word restricted mean? Restricted means, you have to remember, this earth fault can occur in any part of the system. The word restricted indicates that this protection will work if only if there is a earth fault in the transformer winding. If there is a earth fault in the load or outside the zone of protection, this scheme will not work. That is the meaning of the word restricted. That means the reach of the restricted earth fault protection is limited to the winding of the transformer. That means the zone of the protection is clearly marked. If there is an earth fault outside the transformer, this scheme will not work. So this scheme is very useful scheme to protect a transformer from earth fault. Now this is the idea about the restricted earth fault protection for a grounded Y connection transformer. What do you mean by grounded Y connected? See here, this is the neutral point, and this neutral point is grounded through a earthing resistor. So this is called as the restricted earth fault protection for a grounded Y connected transformer, Y connected connection. So here we are protecting the secondary side of the transformer using the restricted earth fault protection. Here we find that the secondaries of the current transformer. What is the secondary of this current transformer? This is the secondary of this current transformer. They are all connected in parallel. So if they are all connected in parallel, what will these 3 current transformers measure? They will measure the phasor sum of IA plus IB plus IB. Remember, it is not the magnitude of the current. These current transformers, if they are connected in parallel to the line, transmission line, they will measure the phasor value. Phasor, that is why I draw a line on top of the current. So phasor value of the current. So the sum of the 3 currents, IA plus IB plus IC, is measured by the line current transformer. So the line current transformers are connected in parallel to the transmission connected, the secondaries of the line current transformer are connected in parallel, and they measure the sum of these currents IA, IB plus IC, the phasor current. Now this is connected in parallel to a neutral current transformer. This is the current transformer which is connected to the neutral point of the Y connected winding. So this current transformer measures the neutral current. So under normal condition, even if these currents IA plus IB, IC are balanced or unbalanced, no problem. The neutral current is always equal to the sum of these three currents under normal condition. So this is the point. So under normal conditions, it is similar to the circulating current scheme. So the current will circulate in these windings. The current will circulate, and the neutral current is exactly equal to the sum of these currents IA plus. So the neutral current will cancel the IA plus IB plus IC. Under normal condition, the current flowing through the relay will be 0 amperes. So this is the normal working condition. Now what will happen if there is a fault? If there is a fault in the winding, so this is inside the zone of protection. So let me clearly mark the zone of protection for you using another color. So here the zone of protection is only this transformer winding. If there is a fault from this portion to the input, so this is called as the zone of protection, this green color area. If there is a ground fault, if there is a earth fault within the zone of protection, then this restricted earth fault protection will sense the fault. If it is outside the zone of protection, it won't trip. So if there is a earth fault as shown here within the zone of protection, the neutral current is not equal to the sum of these current IA plus IB plus IC. Hence, the difference in the current will flow through the relay. Now this will be the fault current. So the fault current will flow through the relay, and the relay will trip the circuit breaker to isolate the transformer. So this is how the restricted earth fault protection works for a Y connected winding. Now the next question you will have is what happens if there is no neutral point. So before going to that, so whatever I said I have summarized here. So here we have line current transformers which are connected in parallel, and they measure the sum of the current, and there is a neutral current transformer which is measuring the neutral current. So under normal condition, the neutral current is equal to the phasor sum of the three currents. So and this is a circulating current scheme similar to the circulating current scheme used in differential protection scheme of the transformers. Now what happens if there is no neutral connection? Here you see there is a Y connection on the primary side of the transformer. So under normal condition, the sum of these currents IA plus IB plus IC will be 0. So the protective relay is connected in parallel to this winding. So under normal condition, the current through the relay will be 0 amperes. But if there happens, so where is the zone of protection? The zone of protection is the region, in this region. So this is called as the zone of protection. Only if there is a fault within this area marked, the relay will sense and trip the circuit breaker. Otherwise, it won't trip. So this is how you protect an ungrounded star connected winding. Again, the connection is the same, but the neutral current transformer is missing in this connection. Now what happens if there is a delta connection? Even for a delta connection, we use the same type of arrangement as we used in the previous slide for the ungrounded star connection. So this is how a restricted earth fault protection will work for a fault inside the zone of the protection. Now this is our connection diagram. So this is our source. This is our source. This is our faultable three-phase transformer. Here this is the power transformer that we are trying to protect. These are the arrangement. These are the current transformers, and this is the neutral transformer. So here we are in this particular experiment, we are trying to protect the secondary of the power transformer from a ground fault. So this is the normal arrangement, and these are the loads. Now here we are going to work on two conditions. We are going to first use a balanced load and check whether the system is stable. Then we are going to use an unbalanced load, and we are going to check whether the system is stable. Now this is a universal fault module. This module is used to create a line to ground fault. In the power transformer, we are going to create a line to ground fault. Now here the fault is outside the zone of protection, so the system should remain stable. So this universal fault module is used to create a fault outside the zone of protection. So here the zone of protection is this red color line. So only if there is a fault. That is why the scheme is called restricted earth fault protection. Now this scheme that we have designed here using these four transformers will protect the secondary of the power transformer from line to ground faults or any ground fault which happens only in this zone of protection. So having said that, let me explain further. Let me remove these indications so that it is clear for you. So the universal fault module is used to create a fault outside the zone of protection. So under normal condition, here you have three coils. CR1 is for manual energizing and de-energizing of the transformer, and normally this is under normal condition, this is closed. This switch is closed. This is a normally closed contact. We normally close this one, and CR2 is automatically energized, and the CR2 is for the control action. The CR2 is for control action. That means if there is a fault, CR2 would de-energize and automatically isolate the transformer. So CR2 is used for control action. CR1 is manually operated to check whether energizing or de-energizing of the transformer. So these two coils under normal conditions are actually closed contacts. So CR1 is closed, CR2 is closed. Now what we have to do, we have to adjust the supply and make sure that the voltage read by this winding E1 is 250 volts. So we are energizing the transformer. The loads are set to 171 ohms. So it is a balanced load. So the currents, you can see the currents I1 and I2 indicated by the meters I1 and I2. So this is the normal connection. So when you energize, you will find that there is a current flowing on the primary side which is measured by I1, and the line current on the secondary side is measured by I2. So this is a delta star connected transformer. So here we are protecting a delta star with the neutral point grounded. So this is the power transformer that we are going to work with. Now here you have to be very careful. Here if you see that they have given you two connections. One is the voltmeter connection and another one is the ammeter connection. So in the first part of the experiment, the relay that we are going to use is a overcurrent relay. So we should not connect this voltmeter. So this point is very important, because in this experiment we can use a current sensitive relay or we can use a voltage sensitive relay. So here we can use either current sensitive relay or voltage sensitive relay. So in the first part of the experiment, we are going to use current sensitive relay, and you should not connect the voltmeter. In the second part of the experiment, what we are going to do is we are going to use a over voltage protection. So you should not connect the ammeter. So this point is very important. Even though they have given you a single connection diagram, we are going to work with two relays, one over current relay, another one is over voltage relay. So we have to be very careful while we are connecting. So in the first part of the experiment, as I said, we are not going to connect the voltmeter. So we will remove this connection and we are going to work with the ammeter. And remember, this IR and E3 we are going to use multimeter, because the current is very small and normal meter cannot measure. So instead of IR and ME, we have to use a multimeter. So we have to use a multimeter to measure the current I4 and E3. Having said that, so what we are going to do here is, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to remove this connection. Then we are going to, and now let us assume that these two contacts are closed and the loads are all connected to 171. So this is a balanced operation. In faultable transformer, we are going to close the switch SW1 or SW3 to create a ground fault on the secondary of the transformer. So here we are going to create a ground fault in the winding. So here we are going to, and this is inside the zone of protection. So what will happen is, you can find that in the current I4, there will be some change in the current I4, and the relay will sense, and because this CR3 is still open, the relay will not take a control action. You can see a red color light. So the red color light will indicate that relay has sensed the fault. So this is the first part of the experiment. In the second part of the experiment, what we are going to do is we are going to remove this fault. When you remove this fault, the red color line is gone. Red color light is gone. Now we are going to close this CR3. If you close this CR3, what would happen is, now if you create the same fault on the secondary winding, we have to be very careful that we are going to create the fault on the transformer number 1. When you create a fault, what would happen is the relay will sense a fault and will take a control action. So what is the control action? CR2 will be de-energized. When CR2 is de-energized, automatically these contacts will open and the transformer is isolated from the supply. So this is the idea of this experiment. So let us now go and check the control diagram, which is in the next slide. So we are now using AC DC current sensitive relay, and we are using a setting of 0 amperes. That is why the scheme is very sensitive. So under normal condition, this contact will be open. So what would happen is the current will flow through here. I think you all understand this by now. So here we have the CR3 winding. So this is our CR3 winding. This is the winding that we have. This is manually controlled, and this is connected here. Then there are two connections, one for CR1 which is manually controlled. So CR1 is manually controlled and CR2 is automatically controlled. So this is CR1, and there is another connection which is called CR2, which is automatically controlled without a switch. So this is our CR2 and this is the winding. So here under normal condition, the current, when we close this winding, so when the CR1 is closed, this you cannot have a current through the CR3 coil, and therefore the contact here remains open. The contact of the CR3 here will remain open, so the current will be circulating like this. This is a normal condition. So CR1 is closed, CR2 is closed, and the current will be circulating. But when there is a fault, what would happen? So let me change the color. So if there is a fault, and if you do not close this CR3, you can see a red color light. So that will indicate that the relay has sensed the fault. Now if you close this CR3, this normally open contact will be closed, and since there is a fault, this contact will also be closed. Now the current will be flowing through this contact, and it will energize CR1. If it energizes CR1, what would happen? This normally closed contact will open. When this contact opens, CR2 will be de-energized. And it will isolate the supply from the transformer from the supply. Now this CR1C will be closed to memorize the fault, and the reset button, there you can see the light in the reset button. So this is how the protective relaying control station works. Now let me go back to this circuit and explain how the second part of the experiment, what you are going to do. The second part of the experiment, what you are going to do is you are going to remove this. You are going to remove the current transformer and now connect the voltmeter. So under normal condition, CR1 is closed and CR2 is automatically closed. So these contacts are normally closed. Now we are going to use a over voltage relay. So now when you use a over voltage relay, you have to remember, now why in this experiment we are able to use this too, because you know that voltage is equal to the product of current and resistance. So here the sensitivity is very less. We are maintaining a current setting of 0. So when the current under normal condition is perfectly balanced and it will be 0. So when the current is 0, the voltage across these 2 points will also be 0. That is the reason why in restricted earth fault protection we are able to use either the current relay or the over current relay or the over voltage relay. So in the second part of the experiment we are going to work with voltage sensitive relay, and the same explanation here. When there is no fault, this contact will be open. But when there is a fault and if CR3 is open, you can see a red color light. And all other explanation I gave for over current relay also is applicable to over voltage relay. And this completes the two parts of the experiment. Now in the third part of the experiment, we are going to do one thing. What we are going to do is we are going to change the value of R1. Change the value of the resistor R1. That means we are creating an unbalanced loading. And we are going to check whether the restricted earth fault protection is stable or not stable. Now the next part of the experiment, we are going to close this contact and we are going to create a fault outside the zone of protection, and we are going to check whether the restricted earth fault protection is stable or not stable. Then we are going to manually open and close this button to energize and de-energize the transformer and check whether the scheme is stable or not stable. So these are the several parts of the experiments that you have to try in the lab class. So what are the highlights? So when earth fault occurs on any winding protected by the circulating current is unbalanced and the overcurrent relay trips. This we have already seen. We can use low impedance overcurrent relay or high impedance over voltage relay because we have checked both of this. I explained both control circuits for you. Now restricted earth fault protection is more sensitive than differential protection, and that is the reason why most of the transformers they prefer to use a restricted earth fault protection. And so these are the highlights of this protection. So let me highlight it for you. So provides fast, it is very fast and more sensitive than differential protection, and it is used and it is stable for faults outside the zone of protection. It is not sensitive to magnetizing inrush and load balance, but you have to remember you have to use two restricted earth fault protection, one on the primary side and one on the secondary side to ensure complete protection of the three-phase power transformer. So these are the references, and thank you so much, and we will do this experiment in the lab class.